Welcome back to week 2, a work in progress. Faith without works is dead. That's a pretty powerful statement, wouldn't you say? This is how James closes the second chapter of his book. So what is he trying to say? Well, to find the answer, we have to start back at the beginning of the chapter. He writes, "My dear brothers and sisters, fellow believers in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ, how could we say that we have faith in him and yet we favor one group of people above another?" James goes on to describe a hypothetical situation where two people show up to church, one in expensive clothes with lots of jewelry, the other a shabbily dressed homeless man. James says that if you were to give the rich-looking man the seat of honor, but turn your back on the beggar dressed in rags, you would have shown some pretty ugly and ungodly discrimination. James concludes, "You've demonstrated gross prejudice among yourselves and used evil standards of judgment." Jesus did not cater to people according to their social standing. Matthew 22, verse 16 describes a situation in which Jesus is described as honest and true because he does not play favorites. Favoritism results in partiality and bias. Favoritism prefers one person to the neglect of another. It is discrimination based on social class, wealth, clothing, actions, and other worldly evaluations. It's a problem that we face every day that Jesus didn't seem to struggle with. History shows us that the American church struggled with this back in the 1960s. Christians largely looked down upon the long-haired, drug-using, rebellious hippies. They couldn't see beyond the superficial labels that they slapped on the youth of the day. What Christians failed to see is that these young people had hungry hearts. They sensed something was wrong with society and that there was more to life than materialism, social climbing, and the idol of political power. Fear, prejudice, and uncertainty about these young people caused the church to largely push them away. The recent movie, Jesus Revolution, depicts a moment when a switch was flipped. In this scene, we find a church divided completely in half. On one side, the pews are lined with conservatively dressed men in suits and women in dresses. On the other, overflows with scraggly, barefooted men and women with hip-hugging bell-bottom pants with flowers in their hair. One suit-wearing older man stands up and crosses the aisle to join the newcomer hippies. This action communicated a bold, wordless statement of the love James is describing. In verse 8, James writes, "Yes, indeed, it is good when you obey the royal law as found in the scriptures. Love your neighbor as yourself." So here's a hard question. Who do we as a church view with trepidation in our current era? Might these people have a thirst for living water? Are we ready to leave our comfort to express God's love to them? This royal love that James mentions is the same two commandments that Jesus gives in Matthew 22. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. There are many reasons why we may show preference for one person over another. Maybe their social or financial status could benefit ours. Maybe they dress or talk or act like us. Maybe they're smart or praised by the world, or on the other side, maybe they have nothing to offer us. Maybe they make us feel uncomfortable. But remember this instruction from 1 Corinthians 1, verses 26 through 29. Few of us were valuable in the world's eyes when God called us. Instead, God chose us in our foolishness, shame, and weakness to rise against the powers of this world. We can't boast about anything we have or have done. It's all because of God. This reminds me of the rich young ruler who turned away from Jesus because he was told to give up all of his possessions. What a tragedy it is for us to give up a glorious life with Christ in eternity because we put so much value on the treasures of this world. We gain so much from one another when we do not let our biases interfere with our love and the opportunities God provides. So if a person's faith is sincere and they are committed to loving like God, how does that transform their life? It's simple. You see them working with others to build God's kingdom. Faith apart from works is only head knowledge. Active obedience demonstrates that our faith is genuine. James asks, starting in verse 14, what good is it if someone claims to have faith but doesn't demonstrate good works through it? That kind of faith is phony. Verse 22 then describes this faith as being in cooperation with works. The Greek word used here is synergio, which indicates a partnership where faith and works are dependent upon each other. There is a harmony between our faith in God and the outworks of our faith. Romans 8:28 describes this synergism like this, and we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose for them. We now find ourselves back at this statement. Faith without the expression of good works is dead. In fact, James likes faith without works to a human body without the Spirit. It's just a corpse. Just as life without the Spirit is lifeless, useless, and valueless, faith without works is dead, ineffective, and worthless. Spend some time now in your group exploring the interrelatedness of faith with works. How have you been challenged by this? And who is God calling you to selflessly love in faith? May God bless you in your time together.